Hey there Wargamers, this is Justin from AMP Services with this week's Tactical Tuesday video. Before we get started, I'd like to encourage you guys to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already and help get this channel growing. With that being said, let's jump right in. So for today's Tactical Tuesday video, we're going to be talking about a Devastator Centurion Drop Pod unit. If you caught my last video, I talked about drop podding Devastator standard Marines, and that particular build's really good with the Cataphractii Terminator. This one's a different take on it. The number of grav shots you'll get on the initial deep strike is not quite as high. However, you have a little bit more survivability with a 2-up armor save on the Centurions, and you know, you don't have to throw in that Cataphractii Terminator to be able to shoot your maximum number of shots on the turn of the deep strike. So let's talk about the components you need to get this going. Obviously you need a drop pod. That's not in the photo, but that's a given. The first thing you'll want to do is kit out your Devastators. Now, you can outfit the Devastator Centurions with whatever gear that you would like. For my army, I'm using grav. I'm being one of those players that's just using quite a bit of it right now in the current state of the game. However, you've got some different options for them. You can run heavy bolters, las cannons, things like that. You have an option for missile launchers or hurricane bolters. I will probably be proxying these as hurricane bolters from most of the time, simply because I built these as rule of cool. The grav guns are correct, but the hurricane bolters to me didn't look quite as cool as having like rockets flying out of this guy's boobies. It seemed kind of funny to me to have rockets flying his chest, but in terms of the gameplay, the rockets are kind of secondary. They're not super necessary. You also have an option for your sergeant to take an omniscope if you want. He would be able to ignore night fighting. I'm not sure if that conveys to the squad, but he would definitely have it. And with omniscope, he would have split fire. So one of the models could fire at a different unit to its own. So the hurricane bolters and rockets may take on a different use for you if you consider the omniscope, because you can split fire. You could have like 2 with rockets and 1 with hurricane bolters, so that you can split fire the hurricane bolter at infantry, or vice versa. You may have 1 rocket and 2 hurricanes, so that you can split fire the rocket somewhere else and the hurricane bolters go into infantry. However you want to do it, that is an option. It also helps you split up your grav shots depending on what it is you're going to be firing at. I will say a quick little caveat to the kit if you do not own one. All of mine are modeled with standard or with the unhelmeted faces. The helmets look kind of like something out of, I don't know, it's not Lord of the Flies, but they look like pig helmets to me. I just didn't like them. That's me, personal preference, but that's just kind of a modeling aspect. Keep that in mind when you build them. You can put pretty much just any type of Space Marine head will probably work in there, especially the unhelmeted ones if you find one you like. Now, the third element, so obviously you need a drop pod, you need a unit of Devastator Centurions, and the third element is some type of Librarian. Now, these guys take up 3 slots each in a drop pod. And that drop pod is the only way you're gonna be able to do this, with the current rules that are changing, you're gonna have to run a Combined Arms Detachment, take a fast attack drop pod, and put these guys in it. They can't take it as a dedicated. If you're running a demi company or a battle company, and your heavy choice is gonna be Centurions instead of Devastators, Devastator Marines rather, these Centurions cannot get in a drop pod any other way now. They're changing it to where you can only get in a drop pod, or you can't get in dedicated or you can't deploy in dedicated transports that aren't your own. And the demi company and battle company would be different detachments. So if you ran like a CAD to bring in a drop pod, and the Centurions didn't come from that CAD, they would not be able to get in, or would not be able to begin the game inside of a Battle Brothers drop pod, if that makes sense. It's really convoluted and funky, but just trust me when I say that the only way to get these guys in a drop pod right now is in a standard Combined Arms Detachment, which is not terrible. It's pretty easy to do, and it's pretty effective. Now, so got that out of the way, your Combined Arms Fast Attack drop pod, your Devastator Centurions in the pod, and the third element is a Librarian of your choice unit. Now, we're going to go ahead and get this out of the way here. As you can see, I did a quick change here and added in a different Librarian along with Tigurius. This guy can't actually get in there. I use him for a different type of drop pod unit. This guy's got a Storm Shield and a Power Axe or Force Axe. He can't go with them, so he's just gonna get out of here right now. And we're gonna go back to the normal Librarians. So these guys take up 3 slots each in a drop pod, which leaves you with 1 open slot. So the next option that you're going to want to pick for your Deep Strike Devastator Centurion Drop Pod Death Star here would be what type of Librarian do you want? So now you could field a standard Librarian here, you know, not finished, but you know, that guy. Or you could pick up a Tigurius if you're an Ultramarines player and run him if you have points. If you're strapped for points, the standard Librarian will do you just fine. If you have the points to invest and you want to make your Death Star a little bit more annoying for your opponent, Tigurius is the way to go. Now, the reason why you want a Librarian with your Centurions here is because there's a plethora of psychic powers that will help you buff them. The one that's going to stand out the most and also going to bring the most flack upon you from your gaming group is rolling on telepathy for invisibility. Getting that is going to be easiest with Tigurius because he's going to get 3 rolls with rerolls to try and hit that elusive number 5, which is invisibility. Now, an invisible unit of Devastator Centurions is absolutely annoying. The turn you drop pod in, ideally you're going to pop your Devastator Doctrine if you're an Ultramarine player. If you happen to have Tigurius and get invisibility, you're going to cast invisibility on them. You also have pretty good odds of having, I think it's Terrify for -1 leadership on the unit. It's either -1 or -2. And then you're probably going to have you should have the Primaris power as well, which is Psychic Shriek. So you can cast invis on these, potentially lower the leadership of a target that's in range of you, and then Psychic Shriek them, which is 3d6 minus their leadership, and it deals that many wounds without armor or cover saves allowed. That's huge. Being able to do that in the Psychic phase and then turn around and take the whole unit and blast somewhere else, that's really great. In addition to the fact that if these guys are invisible, you're only hitting them on 6s, or the opponent's only hitting them on 6s, which increases their survivability by some stupid amount. Hitting them on 6s, and then they have 2-up armor saves, and their toughness 5 is really fantastic. Now, if you happen to do the combo with Tigurius here, and your opponents complain to you, especially if you're playing like a local level, not a tournament, make sure that they know that this is basically one of the only real good tricks Tigurius can do. Granted, there are a lot of different psychic powers he could roll on, but for 265 points, this guy being the chief librarian of the Ultramarines doesn't have an invuln save. So one strength 8 shot, a Melta, a las cannon, strength 9, a fusion blaster, a rail gun from Tau, and he dies. He has nothing. Now he could look out Surrey to one of the Centurions, but invisibility for him, and now I'm not going to argue that for Eldar and crap like that because they're nuts. But for him, because he doesn't have an invuln, that really helps fill the gap that he is lacking. It also helps the Centurions because they don't have an invuln save either. So the invisibility is really good. Now, if you're not rolling on telepathy, you could roll on, I believe it's biomancy, and if you got, I think it's endurance. Endurance, if you cast that, would grant relentless, which you would not need on this unit, but it would also grant them Eternal Warrior and Feel No Pain 4+. Now, you're going to take a lot more heat in terms of fire if you try and go the endurance route. And again, with Tigurius, pretty good odds of getting endurance off biomancy if you want to do that instead of invis. But you're going to have a 2-up armor save, 4-up Feel No Pain, and you're going to have Eternal Warrior. So, if you're getting hit with anything short of a strength D that causes instant death, you're still going to take your 4-up Feel No Pain. That's pretty good as well. And if you're trying to play with someone who's a little bit more casual and you don't want to be quite as cheesy, endurance with Tigurius may be a little bit better, so that you're not being quite as brutal, and you're still going to have some survivability on the unit while still being able to be killed by your opponent. Now, if you are a non-Codex Marine player, the standard librarian might be obviously what you have to do, and with a mastery level 2, it's not quite as easy to get invisibility with them. It's also not as easy to guarantee that you get Iron Arm. So you might roll on, I think it's Divination. If I got that power wrong, I apologize. But Prescience is also really good on them. For the simple fact that essentially it's going to give you Twin Linked. So, and that's a Primaris power, so it's pretty easy to get. If you're playing a Codex Marine or non-Ultramarine chapter, and you happen to not be running a Demi Company, or yeah, you're not running a, not Demi Company, but you're not running a Gladius Strike Force, you don't have access to the Mission Tactics cards, or whatever they're called. So you don't have the Devastator Doctrine to give them essentially twin linked on the turn that they drop pod. So if you take your Librarian that's not Tigurius, and you grab the Psychic Tree, which again I think is Divination, and you grab that Primaris for Prescience, you give them twin links. So the turn they land, they've got twin linked guns. The biggest issue you're going to run into, though, is the survivability without endurance or invisibility goes way, way down. Now, if you're trying to synergize this with the rest of your army, turn 1, if you have at least 3 drop pods, so 2 are dropping in, or 5, you have 3 dropping in. These guys are going to draw a lot of your opponent's attention, so if you leverage that, to quote Fritz here, if you guys watch Fritz 40k, to leverage a little bit of that, quote, tricknology, as he says, if you know that this is going to draw that heat, which it normally will, that's going to help you position your other Tactical Marines or Devastators or Dreadnoughts. Whew, drew a big blank there. It's going to help you position those a little bit better with your drop pods, as well as any other advancing forces you may have, because these are going to draw a lot of heat. Now, if you happen to be a non-Ultramarines player, you could run a allied detachment, bring in Tigurius as the HQ choice, Scouts or Tactical Marines as the compulsory troop choice, and then fast attack choice your drop pod, and put these guys with Tigurius in that drop pod as an allied detachment. Then with your Combined Arms Detachment as your primary, bring in at least 2 drop pods there, and you could still do that, and these guys would still be able to drop pod in, potentially have Endurance and Invis, and get the Devastator Doctrine on turn 1, if that's what you chose to do, because these would be an Ultramarines allied detachment, and they would have the Ultramarines chapter tactics. So you have quite a few options for this Death Star. It's really good, but I, from personal experience, I can tell you, as the controlling player, and to give your opponents or anyone who wants to know how to combat these an idea, if you fail Invisibility or Endurance, you don't activate those, or you fail to get them by some freak chance with Tigurius, these guys are definitely done. They're going to drop pod in, we do a lot of damage, and then they're probably going to die. If they don't die, they're either going to be made useless, or they're going to get assaulted. So for you as the opposing player, know that if there is a turn that the Tigurius, in this particular case, if he fails Invisibility, he doesn't get it off, he perils whatever, or he fails to get Endurance off, that is the turn that you throw everything you can at these models, because if you kill them, they're gone. No more invis, none of the shenanigans. If you fail to do so, and you let your opponent come back and get invis or endurance off in a subsequent turn, then they're still going to be hard to kill. So make sure you're looking for that opening, and when you see it, take the tip of your sword and thrust straight forward and try and take those guys out. Now, as the player who would be fielding or controlling these to help combat that, just keep in mind your positioning. There's no need to deep strike these guys too close to your enemy. So long as when they get out of the drop pod, they are 20 to 24 inches away from a variety of targets, you're good to go. Things a little bit different if you're trying to use Psychic Scream and like Terrify, stuff like that with Tigurius, but psychic powers that are offensive are secondary to Invis and Endurance and keeping these guys alive. This is a pretty big point sink, so make sure you do everything you can to protect them, and make sure you do screens and get your positioning right. So with that being said, guys, what do you think? I'm sure this build has been floating around the internet long before I even came up with it or considered it, but if this is something new to you, let me know what you think. If you've used it, you want to try it, let's get a discussion going. If you hate it, you can also talk about that, or if you found different ways to combat it, let's get a discussion going below. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe, and as always, happy wargaming, guys.